Assalamu alaikum. I'm a public school in College Khanewal. It's your class second year and subject is biology. This is chapter number 17, nervous coordination, and the topic is reflex arc and nerve impulse. Yes, we are starting from the reflex arc. You can see here one picture. The reflex arc is the pathway of reflex action. The reflex action is actually the involuntary action, you can say, or automatic response it can be. With the help of this example which is given here, you can understand the reflex arc very easily, as it is a pathway and the action that is being performed by this hand. After putting hand on the flame, what happened that this man will just put away his hand from this flame. Reason being because it is very hot. Now what happened that this action, when he put away his hand from the flame, is a reflex action. That is a automatic action. You can say it is an involuntary action. What happened for this action? What is the pathway of nerve impulse for this action? Let's see about it. You can see here, this is the nerve impulse pathway. This red color is showing the neuron pathway, the nerve impulse pathway. It is moving from like skin. It is receptors that is having the receptor cells on it. Fine, the receptor cells feel this stimuli of heat and putting away the hand. Okay, how the receptor skin detect a stimuli of heat. Now this message is going from the receptor cells towards the relay neuron through these sensory neurons. These are the sensory neurons that are sending message towards the relay neuron. Here, from here you can see this is a part of the spinal cord, right? But from this region it is not going towards the central nervous system. From here what happened that relay neuron, that associative neuron, give response to motor neurons. They give message to motor neurons. Motor neurons are bringing message from this relay neuron and giving it towards your muscles. And your muscles contract, right? And what is that action when your muscles contract? That you put away your hand from the flame. So this whole pathway from which the nerve impulse is passing is called the reflex arc, and the action that is performed here is called the reflex action. Is it clear to you about reflex arc and reflex action?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for this purpose, you can see the information here, reflex arc and reflex action. A reflex arc is a pathway of nerve impulse during reflex action. Whenever you are performing any activities like this, that is actually a sudden response, it is called the reflex action. And the pathway through which the nerve impulse move is called the reflex arc. Okay, the reflex action is actually involuntary action. It's an immediate and automatic response. For this purpose, the example I have already elaborated this one, and the 5 steps occurs here. The first one is the receptors. You can see that here the receptors are present on the skin. Next, sensory neurons. Number 2, you can see these sensory neurons that are taking message towards the brain. Third is associative neurons. You can see here sensory neurons are sending message in this part that is containing the relay neurons or associative neurons, which interpret the message and give response. For this purpose, they are again sending some information to motor neuron. So motor neurons, fine. Here are the motor neurons which carry message from relay neuron towards the muscles. Next to it is the effectors. Yes, after motor neurons, you can see here these effectors, and these effectors are your muscles. And hence, the reflex action take place, and the pathway that is followed by the reflex action is called the reflex arc. Is this point clear?
Yes, miss.
The yes is only from Kainat. What about rest of you students?
Yes, miss.
Okay, all right, fine. Let's see the next topic. That is about the nerve impulse. You have seen the structure of the neuron. Yesterday, I elaborated the whole structure of neuron that consists of its structure is actually like this. The neuron cell, the nerve impulse. What is nerve impulse? Nerve impulse is a message, is a wave of electrical changes, or you can say it is a message that is sent towards the brain, or it can send back from brain towards the effectors. So the message running in your body towards your brain is in the form of this nerve impulse, right? To see the nerve impulse, how it is moving, you need to see the structure of the neuron. You are well familiar with this structure, that it is having the upper part that is known as cell body. Cell bodies have these dendrites, the nucleus, the cytoplasm. Next to it is this whole tail is known as the axon part. This axon part is sending the nerve impulse, like your dendrites receive the message come towards here, this nucleus part, this cytoplasm, and from this cytoplasm it goes towards the next part, that is the axon part. So basically the message passageway is this axon part, right? From here the message passes through the saltatory impulses. So let's see what is nerve impulse that will move through these neuron cells. It is a wave of electrochemical change. Travels along the length of the neuron. As I told you, it travels along the length of the neuron, involving chemical reaction and movement of ion across the cell membrane. If you remember about the cell membrane, you well know about it, that it allows a few substances to come across it. It can be the ions and many molecules that can pass across the cell membrane. Do it have the cell membrane also? Yes, I told you that it is also having one cell membrane on it, the exolemma. Exolemma was a membrane which is present on the axon. Its membrane is known as cell membrane, is exolemma present here. So it allows the ion to go inside and outside of the axon. This is the extracellular environment and this is the intracellular environment. Okay, so what happened here? Movement of ions across the cell membrane, neurolemma. Nerve impulses information or signals about a stimulus that is transmitted from receptors to the CNS. SE? Yes. Nerve impulse is information or signals about a stimulus that in this example, you know that the nerve impulse that you are feeling heat, it went towards your brain to your motor neuron, associative neurons, and they are giving message towards this motor neurons. So this message, whenever you're doing any activity, it is going by this nerve impulse. The message is sending in the form of this nerve impulse. What is the electrical potential? Is a measure of the capacity to do electric work. As you know, nerve impulse is actually an electrochemical change in which the ions and charges are crossing the the cell membrane, right? These are the electrochemical changes. In nerve impulse, that is a form of message. It is electrochemical change, right? And what is electric potential? That is a measure of the capacity to do electric work. That how much the nerve impulse is moving towards the central nervous system. Fine, this capacity of membrane to measure the nerve impulse is called its electrical potential. And what is the membrane potential? Here you can see, like this is a cell. Inside of the cell, you can see the sodium ions are present. Outside of the cell, you can also see here maximum sodium ions present. And now they will move inside or outside of the cells by the process of the active transport, or by the process of the tree. It can be move inside or outside of the cell. So what is the membrane potential? The electrical potential that exists across a cell membrane is known as the membrane potential. Like These are moving inside and outside of the cell membrane, and cell membrane is allowing these substances to come across it. This is the electrical potential that exists across a cell membrane. Fine? That ions are moving inside and outside of the cell membrane, and here is the membrane which is helping them to across outside and inside of the environment. So this is known as the membrane potential. The electrical potential that exists across a cell membrane is known as the membrane potential. So is it clear the electrical potential and membrane potential? Yes, please.
मिस इलेक्ट्रिकल पोटेंशियल दोबारा बता दें.
Electrical potential is actually a capacity of these ions, that how much nerve impulse is moving or crossing the axon is called its electrical potential. It's you can say the length of the message is electrical potential, and you know that message or nerve impulse is in the form of electrochemical change. That's why its potential is called electrical potential. Clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay, nerve impulse, wave of electrochemical changes, that is, it is being possessed by this neuron. Fine, the neuron is responsible. The second name of nerve impulse is the message in your body, and this message is in the form of electrochemical wave of electrochemical changes. The nerve impulse, second name you can say wave of electrochemical changes, and it is being possessed by this neuron structure. What happened there? Neuron possess electrical potential. What is the meaning of electrical potential? The movements of ions and charges inside and outside of the cell. And this is the capacity to do work. The electrical potential is capacity to do work, because the work is in the form of chemical changes. And these are the ions and charges here. So it is called the electrical potential or capacity to do work. What happened? Wave of electrochemical change in which information, stimulus transmitted. What is the stimulus? Any message that you detected from your environment, that is a stimulus which is transmitted to the from the receptors towards the central nervous system, and from central nervous system towards the effectors. Right? Got this point?
Yes, miss.
Okay, now let's come towards the here, the membrane potential. We are having two types of membrane potential. One is the resting membrane potential, and one is the active membrane potential, AMP and RMP. The resting membrane potential is the situation when you are doing nothing. Your body is in rest condition, your brain is in rest condition. That is called the resting membrane potential. At that time, the membrane potential is known as the resting membrane potential, right? And the other is the action membrane potential or active membrane potential. It happens in the case when your body is active and performing any activity. At that time, your brain is having active membrane potential. Simply, when your body is receiving message from outside of the environment, right? It's mean it is active membrane potential, that the ions and molecules are moving outside and inside of the cells. And when the resting membrane potential, there is also one phenomena for this purpose, but there is no conduction of the message. The brain is in resting condition. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, see, for this purpose, I'm here just to give you a concept of resting membrane potential. When your body is at rest, when you are doing nothing, when your brain is very calm, what happened at that time? At that time, there is a resting membrane potential. You can see here the structure of this axon, the neuron structure. This is the cell body part, and this one is the axon part. And you know that message come from these dendrites toward the cell body, and from this cell body it moves towards this region, and this region is called the axon. Okay, when you are free, you are relaxed, nothing is happening around you, brain is in resting condition, at that time your neuron possess some phenomena. Here some functioning happens that make your membrane in resting position, right? What is that phenomena which occur during the resting membrane potential? We are supposed to see that phenomena. What happened actually in resting membrane potential? When you are in rest condition, there are certain changings needs to take place for this resting membrane potential. What are that certain changings? Let's see that changes. Okay, first of all, you must know about the ions. These are the sodium ions, and here are the potassium ions, right? These are the sodium ions, and these are the potassium ions. Okay, sodium ions, you can see this is the axon structure. It's mean this one is intracellular structure, and this is the extracellular structure. And you know that from the ions or charges moves across the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane, right? And they are moving inside and outside. This is the outside environment, and this is the inside environment. What happened here, students? The sodium and potassium ions are present. Let's see, these are the sodium ions, and what is, they are tenfold higher in concentration outside. You can see I mentioned here 10-fold higher. It means 10 times higher in outside the environment and less inside the environment. And if you see, for the potassium ions are 30 times more concentrated. Here you can see these are the potassium ions. They are 30 times more concentrated. They are high inside of the cell than outside of the cells. Their concentration is higher inside of the cells, and that is 30 times higher than the outside of the environment. Okay, now what happened here? Here the active transport take place. What is the active transport? The movement of molecules from the area of low concentration towards the area of higher concentration. Is it so? Is active transport movement of molecules from the concentration, lower concentration towards the higher concentration? Is it so?
Yes, ma'am.
Please speak louder. I need your proper coordination. What is the definition of active transport? Tell me.
The movement of molecules from the area of higher concentration to the area of lower concentration.
No, it's from the area of lower concentration towards the area of higher concentration across the gradient. You need, you can see here that the sodium ions are present maximum outside and minimum inside of the cell. And active transport is the movement of molecules from the area of less concentration towards the area of higher concentration. With the expenditure of energy, this ATP's molecule help them because they are moving from lower concentration towards the higher concentration. This is across the gradient. For this purpose, we need ATP, right? So one thing is clear to you all, that sodium ions are present in high amount outside the environment, while inside they are less in numbers. And if you see the potassium ions, they are 30 times higher inside the membrane than outside of the membrane. Now what happened that with the help of active transport, these ions will move outside of the membrane, right? They are present in less concentration here, but ATP is helping them to move outside through this pump. And this pump is sodium pump. Like in your school, there are two gates. One is for boys and one is for girls. The gate from where the girls passes is known as the girls gate, and the gate from where the boys pass is known as the boys gate. In the same way, the gate from where the sodium ions will pass out is known as a sodium pump or sodium channel, and the gate from where the potassium comes inside or outside is known as a potassium pump or potassium channel. Okay, now tell me students that inside of the cell, sodium concentration is low and outside it's high. What will be the movement of sodium ions? Will it move from inside to outside or outside to inside? Yes, please.
Outside to inside.
How? You can see this arrow. Outside the concentration is high. Inside the concentration of sodium is low. So if you remember the active transport, according to that, sodium ions will move outside. Got it? Because active transport says movement of molecules from less concentration towards the higher concentration. Okay. Next it is about the potassium pump, where you can see that potassium are present 30 times more higher inside than the outside. And what happened that outside potassium ions are less in numbers, so they will move inside the cell, right? Now the potassium ions are moving inside of the cell. But what happened? One thing needs to remember that sodium ions cannot diffuse. They cannot diffuse through this membrane. Through the active transport, you know that they are moving inside and outside with the help of some proteins also and with this energy also. But if you see the simple process, the diffusion process, for this purpose, nothing can move inside or outside of this membrane. Only and only potassium ions can move outside or inside of the cell. When the concentration of potassium is higher inside, then what happens with diffusion? They will leak from here. Potassium ions go outside the environment. So there is one thing about the sodium and potassium pump, that how the sodium ions are higher in outside environment, so and less in inside. So they are moving from less to high concentration. Likewise, potassium are higher inside, less outside. So they are moving from outside to inside. This is the first thing that you need to notice for the resting membrane potential. First condition was about the sodium and potassium pump, right? And the second thing is the leakage of potassium ions. As I already told you that this membrane didn't allow all the substances to pass across it. But through the process of diffusion, only this potassium can move inside and outside. Okay? So what happened here when the process of diffusion takes place? Sodium doesn't move outside or inside with this process. Only the potassium that is now in higher concentration inside of the cell, it will start moving towards the outside. Second point clear? The leakage of potassium ions with the process of diffusion. Yes, please. If you say yes, then I will move ahead. Otherwise, I am not going to tell you anything else. These two concepts are clear. First is about the sodium potassium pump and other is about the leakage of potassium ions.
Yes, Miss. Okay.
Okay. If it is done, let me tell you something more about it. Yes, organic molecules. The negative organic molecules, that are the protein and amino acids, they will come inside of the cell. Now you can see that maximum the sodium ions are moving outside. Fine. In first condition, when there was sodium and potassium pump, you can see sodium ions were coming outside. It means they are producing outside the positive charge. In second condition, and its second part was potassium pump, that that is not involved here. So first condition from sodium and potassium pump, that sodium are coming outside. So the outside environment is having more positive charges. And second thing, the leakage of potassium ions, as all the potassium ions are leaking outside. So you can say they are also producing the positive charge outside of the membrane. Yes, they are also producing the positive charge outside the membrane. But when the organic negative charge, these protein amino acids, they will move inside the cell. It means they are creating here this whole, along this whole membrane, they are coming inside and they are producing here the negative charge, right? In this way, you can say that during resting membrane potential, first thing, the membrane has positive charge outside and maximum negative charge inside of the membrane. Second thing is about the sodium and potassium pumps. You can tell there that sodium ions are 10-fold higher outside than the inside of the cell, and potassium ion 30 times fold higher inside than outside of the cell. That is why the sodium are moving outside and potassium are moving inside. After that, the leakage of potassium ion also take place, that is moving outside of the cells. Hence, they are producing totally positive charge outside of the membrane, and due to the movement of this negative protein amino acids inside the cell, now they are creating here the negative charge. These are certain conditions which bring your nerve impulse in resting membrane potential, in resting condition. So in resting condition, these things happened. Is here any problem?
No, ma'am.
Okay. One thing need to tell you about is the resting membrane potential. Yes, this is the potential. The resting membrane potential in which these all the things are occurring, overall they are more positive charge outside than on the inside. This is known as the resting membrane potential. This whole is known as the resting membrane potential, and this potential will be maintained until the membrane is disturbed or stimulated. If till the time you are in rest condition, it will stay in this position, right? But as you catch some stimulus, strong stimulus, the action potential will occur. And before that, the resting membrane potential is minus 70 millivolt. So what is the resting membrane potential in this condition when outside is having the positive charge and inside is having the negative charge? At this time, the resting membrane potential is minus 70 millivolt. You can check it through the voltmeter. Just you can check it through the voltmeter when you are in resting condition, you are doing nothing. At that time, voltmeter can check and this resting membrane potential will be minus 70 millivolt. Minus mean inside the membrane, the potential is 70. So it is all about the resting membrane potential. Here it ends. If you understand the resting membrane potential, then to understand active membrane potential is nothing difficult. Tell me, understood this term?
Yes, miss.
Okay. After resting membrane potential, here is the action potential. Class, we have seen till the resting membrane potential. Now we are going to discuss about the action potential. Yes, in resting membrane potential, we have discussed about that when our body is in rest, brain is doing nothing. But after that, when the brain or whenever the nerve impulse or neuron, sorry, when it get message or it get any stimulus, then the active membrane potential starts, and it is totally opposite of the resting membrane potential. In this, you have seen that sodium, the sodium ions were moving outside and potassium ions were moving also outside because of leakage of potassium ions through the process of the diffusion. Here you will notice that it is opposite of the resting membrane potential. The process of diffusion takes place here. What happened that sodium pump or sodium channel that help the sodium ions to move inside, and also potassium pump or potassium channels are here that helps to move the potassium ions to inside of the cell. So here these two ions, the sodium and potassium ions influx is means the movement of ions inside of the cells. This was the one thing to be noticed. The second thing you can notice here that the charge has been reversed. Firstly, here was positive charge was outside and negative charge was inside. But now you can see the negative charges are outside and positive charges are inside. Reason being because the sodium and potassiums have moved inside, right? As the more positive charges are inside. And one thing was more there, the organic negative charged molecules like proteins and or amino acids, they have moved outside. That's why they are creating here the negative charge. So this is about the action potential, that influx of sodium and potassium ion. Second thing is of reversed charge molecules. It was first, it was a polarization. When the resting membrane potential is there, the charge are polarized. Now you can see the charge has been reversed. This is known as a depolarization. And if you check the action potential here with the help of a voltmeter, you will notice that the action potential is of 50 volts here. After that, what happened that this message moves this message moves as the influx of sodium and potassium take place. The charge reverse, the message will move the message will move from one neuron to another neuron, and here it reach towards the terminal ends. From these terminal ends, there are many neurons that are attached with each other. With the help of synaptic cleft, this message will move to another neuron. Now the next topic is the refractory period. After an action potential, like you have seen here, this was an action potential. Now fiber undergo a period of a recovery in which it regains its original ionic position. Okay, like this. You notice that in action potential, the sodium ions moves inside, the potassium ions also moves inside. Now what happened that the sodium ion will again move towards its resting membrane potential. At that time, the period that it takes is known as the refractory period. An absolute refractory period is that period, is the part of this refractory period that in which it is not able to give response to a stimulus of any strength. At a time, it is doing only one thing it has done. After that, it is unable to perform for any other stimulus. That time is known as the absolute refractory period. Let's see the refractory period with the help of this graph. You can see here, in resting condition, the voltage is 70 millivolts, and as the threshold or stimulus is acquired by the nerve impulse and shows the action potential, the depolarization take place, in which the sodium ions get in. But right after that, what happened that it needs to be repolarized, where the sodium ions get out of the cell membrane and they move outside of the to the environment, and this is known as the repolarization. This is a period of the refractory period, the repolarization. For this, to understand this, I would like to share one video with you students. Okay, here is one video that will help you to understand the reflex action, and you can say that any other stimulus, how the stimulus goes towards your brain, and how before that the resting membrane potential, and after that, after catching that stimulus, it is showing the action potential or active membrane potential and the repolarization also. So enjoy this video, please.
Respond to environmental stimuli using specialized cells called neurons. A stimulus is detected by sensory receptors, and the body responds through motor effectors. These cells working together allow you to respond very quickly to threats. When you touch something hot, heat receptors of a sensory neuron detect the stimuli and send the information of heat to an interneuron in your central nervous system. From there, a motor neuron sends a response from your central nervous system to the skeletal muscles in your arm, causing them to contract and pull your hand away. The fundamental process of neural transmission that underlies this action occurs in all neurons of the body. Neurons transmit this information through changes in the electrical potential of the membrane by the movement of ions across the membrane. An electrochemical gradient governs the movement of these ions, resulting in an electrical impulse. The resting membrane potential in a neuron, when the cell is not firing an impulse, is established by the unequal distribution of sodium ions outside of the cell and potassium ions inside the cell, making the outside of the cell more positively charged compared to the inside. The electrochemical gradient is established and maintained by an enzyme called sodium-potassium ATPase. When a neuron is stimulated, sodium ion channels open and sodium ions flow into the cell. This leads to a change in the electrical potential across the membrane called depolarization. The depolarizing electrical potential travels down the dendrites and over the cell body. Multiple electrical potentials will combine at the axon hillock in a process called summation. If the depolarization is large enough, an action potential is triggered. Action potentials are all or none electrical impulses that maintain their amplitude and strength down the length of the axon. The action potential travels down the axon when the depolarization of an area of membrane causes adjacent voltage-gated sodium ion channels to open. The influx of sodium ions results in membrane depolarization along the membrane. After a short delay, potassium ion channels open and potassium ions flow out, repolarizing the membrane. For the neuron to fire again, the resting membrane potential needs to be re-established. Sodium-potassium ATPase is used to move sodium and potassium ions against their concentration gradients, re-establishing the resting membrane potential. As the action potential moves down the axon, ions are diffusing only a short distance, allowing the signal to move quickly. At the axon terminal, the electrical impulse passes to another cell at a cellular connection called a synapse. The space between the presynaptic neuron.
Okay, till here it was part of our today's lecture. From this point, we will see it in our next lecture. Hopefully it was informative for you students to understand today's lecture.